Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a deep dive into Bob Lazar, Robert Lazar, Rob Lazar, the man, the myth, the legend, guy who worked at Area 51. Now, I want to do a little deep dive because, I've been in a rabbit hole lately with this guy, and I really wanted to know, how believable is this guy? Now, before you actually dive deep into this guy, he's probably the most believable story out of almost any conspiracy theory out there. Because, his story isn't like mega fantastical. A lot of conspiracies out there really throw me off when they start mixing together, Like the conspiracy about the whole, we'll give you an example. The CIA psychic program, right? Okay, they got documents and all that stuff. But then you look at one of the more popular dudes who were in it, Ingo Swann. Okay, sure, I guess he was in it. But then all of a sudden he says he starts projecting himself on the moon, and then there's alien bases there. And then he goes to Mars and yada yada, and then you're starting to mix stuff. And that's the believability starts getting way less and less. Because like first you have to have me believing in the psychic stuff. Now you want me to believe in alien bases on the moon and that they're psychic, and then all this stuff. The dude wrote like 30 books over the years, so the believability of that one goes down the more you look into it. Bob Lazar, however, as a lot of his pro Lazar dudes say, the story was more or less the same throughout, and his story isn't the craziest story ever. Basically, his story is he says he was a physicist. He went to Caltech and MIT. He worked at Los Alamos National Lab as a physicist. From there he got hired onto Area 51, where he worked at a site called S4. Now, the reason he got this much attention and all that, because he built a rocket jet on his car or bike or something like that, which would get you some attention in the 80s in the scientific community. I could see that. So that's the story. And then once he was working at the site, he says there was 9 UFOs. They had this, what do you call it, I guess, engine that ran on this his version of element 115 that had all these fantastic properties that no element has today, that it could create its own gravitational field. And what else was there? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, although I do have notes that I could look back in. So I think one part he mentioned that it was a antimatter engine. That was one thing, but he also said the fuel was element 115, and that the element 115 was the cause of the distortion of the gravity, which, the exact science of that is dubious at best. I think the only thing that goes for him is that we have no stable version of element 115. So if it were to have some crazy property like that, we need to figure out how to stabilize it first long enough to see. Okay, so that's that. And then sometime through it, his wife started cheating on him, so they stopped giving him to the lab because one of their requirements was he had to have a stable home life. And I guess they didn't tell him his wife was cheating, but he thought something weird was going on, that they were gonna get rid of him or something. So he decided, let's show my friends all these UFOs. He got caught, then released, and then he went on the news and told his story as insurance in case the government wanted to whack him or something. And then the rest is history. The rest is the story he's telling. That is Bob Lazar's story in a nutshell. Now the dude himself, when he tells the story, he's relatively believable, When he tells the story, nothing, doesn't say it too, how should I say? Like, I've seen other people tell their stories about UFO abduction, about this and that, and they just weren't believable. Like the way they told the story, the way their face was. Sometimes they're too serious, sometimes they're fidgety, sometimes they're, you know, doing whatever. Bob Lazar, believable, you know. And my main source from his story is the Joe Rogan podcast, his Netflix movie he did, and you can go back and see the original interviews back in the day. I think the late 80s. I believe it was 89. Was it he came out? I think. So yeah, that's pretty much the main story of Bob Lazar. But we're gonna deep dive into just how truly believable it is and how believable he is. Because I was fully invested. I must have listened to that podcast like, I don't know, 4 times over the years. And I want to know, you know, just like everybody, I want to know. Is this guy telling the truth? Is he full of shit? And here we will find out. So yeah, that's my little intro, a little spiel into Bob Lazar. And come take this journey with me. This is probably going to be a bit of a longer video. I don't know how much editing I'm going to do in this. So strap down, grab a snack. Maybe if you're working out, throw it in the earbuds. And let's do this. Alright, so I got a variety of resources here. I mean, some of it's going to be a little bit spoilery of what I'm going to be talking about later, but I found a nice little article about the general timeline assembled from public records and statements. And what's nice about this one is all the sources are right here. So, you know, what I hate it when I see either an article or a YouTube video or whatever is when you go into the description or you scroll down and there's no sources anywhere. So when I show you sources or any information that you get from this video, it's gonna be generally with sources, and if it's dubious, I'll let you guys know that, you know, take this information with a grain of salt, because it may or may not be true or false or whatever. But these sources, this one right here, I vetted most of it, and it's pretty decent, not bad. So this is like the basic timeline. Let's see, we're just gonna skip to it. We're gonna skip the intro, go straight to the timeline. I guess I'm gonna pause it and just check it out. More or less, it just talks about his vanishing record, public stuff, creations of Lazar's story, questions come to the mind. So, 1959, dude was born, Florida. So the location, Coral Gables, is given in Good's book. Good also states Coral Gables is given in Good's book. I'm not sure who Good's book is. George Knapp is going to be a big name that's going to appear multiple times. Sorry, I'm just taking a swig of my drink. He's the reporter that broke his story initially. Jeremy Corbell is going to be a name that pops up often in recent times, because, you know, he's responsible for his little documentary and Joe Rogan stint, and he did a bunch of other shit that's all conspiracy laid. But yeah, so born in Florida. So 1974 social security number issued in New York State. RL is Robert Lazar, so we'll just call him Bob. Bob's social security number and current address, while in the public records, have been deleted from this document in the interest of his privacy. However, the social security number begins with 068, which indicates it was issued in the state of New York. It is possible to determine from the remainder of the social security number that it most likely was issued in 1974. So again, you know, if you don't believe this stuff, I will leave in the description everything I do on this video, so you guys are welcome to check it all out yourself. Okay, anywho, so social security number, August 1976, according to Stanton Friedman, which is another physicist. Robert graduated from Tresper Clark High School, which is the address, in Westbury, Long Island, New York. His class standing was 261 out of 369, which for a physicist isn't the best. Further, according to Friedman, this would put Robert Lazar in the bottom third of his class, and entry into Caltech and MIT generally requires a student to be top 10% of the class. So, Stanton Friedman, he often appears. I'll show you what he looks like. Stanton Friedman. If you've seen any bunch of documentaries and stuff, you would recognize the guy. American physicist. Yeah, so this guy, he was in some documentaries that involved UFO stuff and yada yada, and some history stuff. But this guy's not the worst source ever. So Stanton Friedman really looked into Bob Lazar. He did some research, called some stuff, and you know. So Bob's claim to be in Caltech and MIT is already disputed here, because you have to be 10% of the class, but Bob was supposedly bottom third, which is not good. Let's see, claims to have attended Los Angeles Pierce College. This has been confirmed by Stanton Friedman after Bob stated that one of his professors at Caltech was named Duxler. Friedman located William Duxler, a math and physics professor at Pierce College, who was able to determine that Bob had taken at least one of his courses in the late 1970s. Duxler said he never taught at Caltech. So, unfortunately, it seems like Bob was caught in another lie, but it's not looking good for him. Bob's parents purchased a home at this place, California. Okay, Bob's parents moved to this place, 78. Bob claims a Bachelor of Science degree in Physics and Electronic Technology from Pacifica University, Correspondence University. According to Bob's pre-sentence report for his pandering conviction, Pacifica was shut down in 78 by the state of California for selling degrees. Damn. Ah, that's not good. So if he claims he got one from there, and it got shut down for selling degrees, if this part's true, that's not looking good. Alright, 77 or 78, claims to have attended Cal State University for a short time for some classes and on to Caltech. The Big T is the student yearbook for Caltech. At the Millikan Library at Caltech, every page of every issue of the Big T from the year 1977 through 82 was checked. There is no photo or mention of Bob anywhere in any of the activities. Highly improbable were he a student there. Checking by George Knapp and Stanton Friedman with the administration reveals no records of Bob's attendance, although good reports Friedman has confirmed Bob's attendance to Cal State Northridge. Friedman says this is not correct. Who confirmed? Friedman. Although good reports Friedman has confirmed Bob's attendance to Cal State, Friedman himself says this is not correct, and he has not made any inquiries into Cal State Northridge. That's one thing I have noticed in my little deep dive of a lot of these stuff. People seem to twist the words often. So later on you'll see another story of Jeremy Corbell kind of twisting the words of I think it was a physicist or something. We'll get to it. But this happens often where some people take the smallest little ambiguous information and roll with it and then use that like it's a source. And if nobody ends up checking up on that source ends up being pretty believable. So that's another one of those things, you know? Okay, there was a Robert Lazar who graduated from Northridge in 78 with a degree in business administration, but examination of the yearbook clearly indicates he's a different guy. Again, not Bob Lazar. Bob married this chick, which his marriage certificate comes into play with some information. Okay, 82, date of claimed master's degree at MIT. At Rachel 93, Bob was asked for the year of his graduation from MIT. I think Rachel 93 is he did like a little Q&A or something, public Q&A. And if he got PhD, he replied, no, it was a master's degree. The year, what was the year of graduation? Probably 82, because I think I left there and went to Los Alamos. Glenn Campbell checked the following sources at the Institute Archives at MIT. Student directors between 78 and 90. Faculty staff phone directories between 78 and 90, MIT degree list between 79 and 80, and the 1989 MIT alumni / AE register. There was no listing of Bob in any of these documents. Stanton Friedman was also checked with the MIT registrar's office and the alumni office, and there was no evidence of attendance. Right. So, listing in Los Alamos National Laboratory phone book located by George Knapp, 82. So this is one of those big, see, he's in the phone book. They forgot to the government forgot to erase that part. He's in there, right? Alright, let's check it out. Stanton Friedman states the phone book is not just from Los Alamos National. I'm just gonna call it Los Alamos for short, because LANL is Los Alamos National Laboratory, but I'm not gonna say that whole time. So Los Alamos, the Department of Energy, Kirk Meyer, and others. The listing after Bob's name clearly shows K and M, which means Kirk Meyer proves he did not work for Los Alamos, but for a subcontractor. And Kirk Meyer, keep an eye on that subcontractor, because that's gonna appear quite often in our little investigation. This seems appropriate since the Mason facility mentioned in the Monitor article is a user facility with teams coming from all over to set up their equipment for experiments at the accelerators. As many as 1,000 people per year can go through there. They work at the lab, not for the lab. They do get listed in the phone directory. He apparently was a technician. Strangely, the bankruptcy file in 1986 does not show employment at Los Alamos or Kirk Meyer, only that a self-employed photo processor. Interesting. Yeah, he had his own little photography business going on at this time. So, Los Alamos Monitor article appearing about Bob and his Honda jet car. The article, which appeared on the front page, identifies Bob as a physicist at Los Alamos Mason physics facility. There are a total of 4 photos of what appeared to be a Honda Civic hatchback. The license plate there, with air scoops on the top and sides, and jet nozzle protruding from the rear where the license plate would normally go. The article says the engine, composed of stainless steel and titanium, runs for 30 to 60 seconds on liquid propane with a kerosene afterburner producing 800 pounds of thrust. Oddly, the jet cannot get the car going from a dead stop. It must be driven in a normal manner up to about 90 miles per hour. There is no compressor, and Bob claimed it was the most efficient jet engine available. Standard jet uses 6 pounds of fuel for every pound of thrust. Lazar said he uses 1.3 pounds of fuel for a pound of thrust. I don't doubt Bob was a smart dude, but it's a bold claim right here. Bob stated the car had been driven for over 200 miles per hour on a dry lake near Los Angeles. The article states the car attracts a lot of attention for the Lazars, who moved to Los Alamos about a month ago from California, yada yada. So yeah, one of the big smoking guns, supposedly, is that in the newspaper article, supposedly Lazar is listed as a physicist at the Los Alamos. He was just listed as it. So 82, Edward Teller gives a lecture at Los Alamos. Edward Teller is the father of the hydrogen bomb, I believe, and Lazar claims that he got a reference from him. 84, the bankruptcy papers show Bob borrowed $4,000 from his mother, and at the time the bankruptcy filing had repaid only $500. So this is kind of an important thing. Bob was heavily in debt, as we'll see later on. 85, according to bankruptcy papers, purchased a Corvette. Didn't repay anything. Bob borrowed more money. 85, according to bankruptcy papers, Bob borrowed more money. More 85. So a lot of this stuff is just more of his loan stuff. Bob and Carol purchased a new home. 86, Honda, again, more money. So a lot of this stuff is going to be just him borrowing money and not seemingly paying them back. So 86, Bob married Tracy and Mark. We've only just begun. Wedding chapels in Vegas. Carol Lazar died in Las Vegas. So death certificate. All that stuff. Let's see. More bankruptcy stuff. And then 86, Bob officially files for bankruptcy. Voluntary filed for Chapter 7 which is a liquidation, bankruptcy, Las Vegas, citing loss of business and death of spouse as a reason. In the file, under penalty of perjury, Bob stated his occupation was a photo processor, that he was self-employed at his residence and had been so for 6 years. So, under perjury, in 86, no mention of being a physicist at Los Alamos, which is interesting. There was no mention of employment at Los Alamos. When asked if he had been in partnership with anyone and or engaged in any business with the preceding 6 years, he stated no. For the preceding 2 years, Bob stated the amount of income he received from his trade was unknown, that he had received no other income from other sources and had not filed tax returns for the period. So, you know, a little bit suspicious. So 86, married Tracy for the second time. 87, bankruptcy final decree was issued. And 270 in debt. Okay, 88. Bob met John Layer, precise date unknown, another name keep an eye on, I think. 88, notice of default was issued to Anna Greta House for failing to make payments. Okay. And soon we're gonna get to the good stuff. So this stuff would be like, what does this have to do with UFO and aliens, you know? It is important. I think this is a context that is kind of important for the later story, and you will see why. Alright, let's continue. So, Bob claimed to work, here we go, 88. So this is more of his, so December 1988, Bob began claimed work period at S4. According to Good, which is I think one of the sources down there, Bob would be called by phone and told when to go to McCarran Airport, where a Boeing 737, probably a 737-200 belonging to EG&G, which is a military contractor, I believe, would fly him and others to Groom Lake. From there, after waiting briefly in a cafeteria, a bus was blocked out windows, drove the remainder of the journey along a dirt road in an area estimated to be 10 to 15 miles south of Groom Lake, adjacent to Papoose Lake. 1989, according to Good's account, Bob began initial interviews with George Knapp. Per Lindemann interview, they were done for safekeeping. Oh shit. Man, I have a Red Bull on my side. I'm still tired. A lot of reading. We're not even done yet. Okay. For safekeeping. Curiously, in a radio interview with Chuck Harder on For the People show on November 17th, 1989, George Knapp stated John Layer didn't introduce him to Bob until May 1989. So just a little bit of inconsistency, but not the biggest deal. March 22nd, 1989, first Wednesday night trip to Tickaboo Valley to view disc test. So apparently he began initial interviews with George Knapp, but I'm assuming these weren't aired yet, because it'd be weird if he aired it and then still went to go view the test. Observers were Bob, Tracy, Gene Huff, and Jim Tagliani. They took a videotape of a moving light with a timestamp of 8:30 p.m. shown on the tape. So Gene Huff, I believe he is a businessman. Oops. Actually, I think if I Google Gene Huff, it gives us a different Gene Huff. Yeah, it gives us a politician. Let's see, Gene Huff. Let's see if I do that. I believe he's like a real estate businessman. Wikipedia. I don't know if I want to do Wikipedia. IMDb. Gene Huff is known for the Lazar tape. Okay, this sounds like it. Yeah, I believe he's a business guy. Lazar tape, excerpts from Government Bible, yada yada, Dreamland. Yeah, so he did a bunch of movies and stuff about Bob's story. I think he has something to do with real estate, but I could be wrong on that. Do not take my word for it. I think Jim Tagliani is one of his friends or whatever. Can't remember if this is the guy that appeared in the Netflix one. But yeah, these are supposedly the guys that witnessed it. I don't know that they're credible stuff. I mean, Tracy Lazar, his wife, I think that's his wife. Wife or relative, you know, wouldn't be the best credible thing, because of course she's going to be on her husband's side. Gene Huff, again, businessman who made money off of the story because he made movies and stuff. And I'm not sure about him. I think all these names will be mentioned later anyways. So anywho, third Wednesday night trip view test. Observers were Bob, Tracy, and her sister, Jean Huff and John Layer. They were discovered by guards and detained and questioned by Lincoln County Sheriff. Interesting. I wonder what the protocol would be if Area 51 guards found it. Would they go to the sheriff? I'm not sure. I tried researching some stuff about what happened, but it's hard to find. So Bob's last workday debriefed at Indian Springs Airfield. Bob says he was ordered to report to Indian Springs, where he was interrogated about the previous night's activities. In Good's book, Bob says, "I was never officially fired and my clearance was never officially taken away," that he refused to go back for fear of his safety. In Lindemann's book, Bob says, "I didn't actually leave, they denied my clearance." The reason given for the clearance revocation was the instability of Bob's marriage to Tracy, who Bob claimed was having an affair with her flight instructor. Okay. Crazy story. This guy would make a good fucking movie, I gotta say. According to sworn statements in the divorce records, Bob separated from Tracy/Jackie. Let's see, 89. First interview with George Knapp, broadcast on TV using the name Dennis. Last TV, which early in the week began a series reports by George Knapp on UFOs, which earlier in the week began a series of reports by George Knapp on UFOs, identified and interviewed Bob. Bob and Gene Huff were guests on the Billy Goodman Happening radio show. So, you know, the whole story is definitely taken off. UFOs, the best evidence, a 2-hour compilation of previous reports is shown on that. Bob appeared on the Record, hosted by George Knapp. Bob was a guest on Billy Goodman Happening radio show. Bob was arrested in Las Vegas for pandering. Oh man, a year later, huh? Let me just, what is that? Is that kid friendly? Fuck. Oh shit. Alright. Hang on. Just in case, I just want to make sure I'm getting all the definitions right. Gratify or indulge an immoral or distasteful desire. Okay, what is that in meaning crime? Under most states' statute, pandering is a criminal offense that includes compelling a person to become a prostitute. Yeah, keep that in mind, because that's going to be a consistent topic throughout Bob's thing. So that happened. And the thing about all these appearances, very often, even in Joe Rogan's podcast or in the documentary, you'll often hear Bob say, "I don't make money off of this. I don't want the attention. I don't like appearing off of stuff." So keep that in mind as well. Okay, Bob pleads guilty to felony charge of pandering in district court in 1990. So again, more about the divorce. 1990 sentencing date. As a result of his pandering conviction, Bob was sentenced to 6 months probation, 150 hours of community service, ordered to undergo psychotherapy, and to stay away from brothels. Okay, so that's that. 1990. Jackie Evans Lazar quit claims house street, transferring ownership to him. The IRS places a 5K lien on Bob for taxes. Bob speaks at the Ultimate UFO Seminar in 93, held in Little LA Rachel, Nevada. So that's that little Q&A that he did. Again, you know, he doesn't like appearing in places, but that's what he does. And 1993, let's see. Daily Variety and Entertainment Industry newspaper reports New Line nabs pick based on government UFO scientist. Excerpts from the story, the life story of former U.S. government scientist Bob Lazar that was recently put into turnarounds by Gruber Peters Prods, has been put on earthly fast track by New Line Cinema for director Chuck Russell, according to Michael DeLuca, New Line's exec VP/CEO. New Line finalized the deal for the untitled film on Wednesday after Lazar considered competing offers from producers Steve Fisk, Simpson, Brett Bruckheimer, Prods, And actor Steven Seagal. Oh man. DeLuca said the pick will have an 8 million to 10 million budget and will shoot in fall of early 94 with a 94 release. But yeah, again, the whole claims he doesn't want to make money, doesn't make money off of this thing. I don't know, man. But that's more or less the timeline, which included a lot of documents from some real life happenings, not just his supposed UFO story there. We'll get into the story itself. Some details, like, well, we pretty much already got into it, but yeah, that's pretty much this section. We're gonna move on to some more details. So I found this nice little Reddit post. It's very detailed, very thoroughly researched, and lots of sources to go through. So we better get started on this. All right, so this part here, we have a nice little Reddit post of a lot of different sources that is very thoroughly researched. Just like the last article, it is very easy to find the sources for stuff. Now, I'm not gonna go over every single one of these things. Like, we're gonna click on the sources, and we're gonna check out what needs checking out, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But I'm not gonna read word for word every single source. I'll read this parts because it's the basic rundown, and if you want to read everything yourself, like I said earlier in the description, check it out. Like I said, don't take my word for it, look at the sources yourself. So anyways, Bob Lazar's story is believable. Here's my research by Jack Frost 71, which the dude did some good work. All right, so source number one. If you believe Bob, you believe someone who allegedly fled Los Alamos owing hundreds of thousands of dollars to people, which we've seen some of his debts, right, in the earlier timeline, resulting in Bob finally declaring bankruptcy, which was finished 1 year before the S4 story. So, you know, pretty convenient, huh? Here's John Horn's account of the money Bob owed him and how much he had to chase Bob for years. John was one of the lucky ones that got his money back. So, check it out. So the following is a transcript record. So again, this is the same website I used last time with all the sources and stuff. A lot of this website has a lot of Bob Lazar stuff. So here's the transcript of an interviewer. So following this is a transcript of a recorded telephone interview that took place on May 25th, 1996 between Mark Farmer, MF, and an individual who knew Bob Lazar when he was at Los Alamos, New Mexico. The interview was recorded with the knowledge and consent of both parties. The individual being interviewed by Mr. Farmer has requested his name not be publicly disclosed in this transcript, so his name and any identified references have been removed. So, let's see. So, no exact research. This is just a guy who interviewed a guy who claims to have known Bob. The guy did not want his name on there, so it wasn't exactly for attention or anything like that. So we don't even know who this guy is. But if we go here, there is a list of Bob's creditors and how much he owed. So quite a bit. So amount of loan, so 15K, 4K, 50K, 80K, another 20K. Yeah, so this guy, Bob, owed quite a bit, even to the bank, postal service, Los Alamos, another bank, etc., etc. And even like I believe his mother and his father he owed money to, which is interesting. So yeah, these aren't all his creditors, but Bob owed a lot of money before the S4 story. So let's look at the transcript. Oh, MF, I got your name through. Okay, where are we going there? As I was stating in my message there, doing a little follow-up on Bob Lazar, and I got through some sources that you and he had known each other back when he was in Los Alamos, correct? Correct. Yeah, some of the reading is going to be a bit weird because this is like an actual phone conversation transcript, so it's not like perfect grammar, but I'll do my best. Okay, what was he working for? Before you go any farther, who were the sources you spoke to? Okay, I got your name through Mr. Tom Mahood. Nice last name, Mahood. Mr. Tom Mahood, who did some background investigation for the Lazar timeline. Have you heard of it? No. Put together, George Knapp is a journalist in Las Vegas who put out the original story at Lazar, you know, at the Mr. Goodwrench on the flying saucers. Yeah. And Knapp had stated that he wasn't able to find anything about Lazar's past. Well, Mahood is ex-civil engineer and associate of mine, real straightforward guy. He just decided to take it upon himself to start going through records and stuff. Well, he showed up in Los Alamos with his wife before last, started asking some questions and whatnot, and he came across your name for some other people who don't quite know, but talked to a couple people, I can't remember their names. Stan Friedman was one of them, but I can't recall the other people that tracked me down, so I was just curious. So once again, Stan Friedman with the previous investigation, and I'll show you a later investigation of Stan Friedman that's more detailed of you know, this. So this guy also talked to Stan Friedman on top of this guy. So yeah, actually it may have came through. And Tom from Stan Friedman, because I know they have corresponded, but I would think that would be the extent of where your name has gone around. I'm just trying to find out whether or not, do you know, was Mr. Lazar work for anybody at the lab at the time? Yeah, he did work for the lab for a while. Was he working for Kirk Mayer? That kind of rings a bell, but he was a contractor. Okay, and was he a physicist? He claimed to me, I don't believe he was. Okay, so that was unknown then, we can say. He didn't know either. He claimed he had a degree from Caltech or MIT or something like that, but I don't think that was ever substantiated that he had a degree. How did you meet him? Well, I used to be a real gearhead. He claimed he came to town. He had jet-powered Honda, so naturally started talking to him, and we became friends from there. Did you ever visit him at his photo shop or anything like that? Yes. Oh, very often. Okay, so you met, I imagine that you knew his wife, Carol. Yep. What was the atmosphere around there? Was it professional? Was there a lot of people hanging around there, or do you remember? The atmosphere was professional. I would say it was. You know, I wasn't unprofessional. It wasn't unprofessional. It was just a small shop, but you know, I was generally one of the only people that came around there. They didn't have a lot of friends. Is the story that I have received he solicited from you some financial support for his jet car? Yeah. That wasn't the Honda, that was a J79 Jet Dragster. That's the one he has now? Right. Okay, and you helped him? Yep. And did he ever pay it back? Well, that's kind of a strange story. Yes, I got paid. I was repaid about a year ago. Let me see, when was this? Actually, never mind, who cares? I think they said it was in 96. I was repaid about a year ago, and it was at the height of all this where people were calling me, and I was told that he had a big movie deal going on, and people were starting to dig into his past and find out whether he was on the level or not. And after I talked to several of these people, a check showed up in the mail not too much longer after that, after the last guy I talked to. So apparently I think he was a little bit nervous about me speaking about the folks. So yeah, pretty much after the movie deal had gone by, clearly Bob got paid. Clearly he sent him his money as a little like, hey man, don't worry about it. I mean, you were good. So, you know. Okay. Was the check drawn on his account, or was it a cashier's check? It was a cashier's check. Okay, because I've heard that Mr. Bigelow, and Robert Bigelow is another name in the story. That Mr. Bigelow with the Bigelow tea family may have supported him on that one. Yes, it was a cashier's check. Okay, what was the nature of your relationship? Was it that friendly kind of man-to-man? Yes, yes. Okay, this is just them talking about the technicality of stuff. Did he ever talk UFOs with you? No. I'm just gonna skim through a lot of this. The main point of this one, I think, is basically he owed this guy money. He got the movie deal, paid him back then. Can't definitively say this was hush money, but you know, up to you if you want to read between the lines. And if you want to read the whole transcript yourself, it is an interesting read. Gives you a little bit of an impression on Bob himself. Because a lot of these transcripts of interviews and stuff don't paint, some of them, not all of them, a lot of them are, they don't know him very well, but some of them don't paint Bob in a very good way. And I don't mean the whole lying part, I mean as a personality kind of thing. So the next one is a guy that said he was a physicist at Los Alamos. However, people that knew Bob, like John Horn, said he was an electronics technician at Los Alamos. Bob told Stanton Friedman that he went to Pierce College. Bob's 19-year marriage certificate lists him as being an electronic engineer. In 81, Bob was working at Fairchild / Incom, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, as an electronics test technician in 81. According to a work colleague, Bob also admitted working at Fairchild in a Wired article. In 1982, he showed up at Los Alamos and told a reporter who wrote about his jet car that he was a physicist. In 1989, he used the Los Alamos phone directory to prove he worked there, and in combination with the 1982 article, he used it all as proof that he was a physicist there. Problem is, Los Alamos phone directory lists him working for a company called Kirk Meyer. Kirk Meyer hired tech-related roles like electronics technicians. They were formerly called Roll Tech. Bob on Billy Goodman back in 1989 said he started at Los Alamos as a technician. He also told Corbell that in 1982, while working at Los Alamos, that he went out and installed a satellite dish there. This is the year he told the Jet Car Article Journal that he was a physicist there. Yeah, so a lot of throughout the 80s, the timeline of when he actually did and didn't work at Los Alamos is kind of weird. Sometimes it's early 80s, sometimes mid 80s. I think the timeline of when he supposedly worked at Area 51 was like 6 months to a year. Or maybe, because I'm not sure. Like I said, some of the timeline stuff is a bit weird depending on which source you look at. But anywho, let's continue. Recently, someone was able to interview a physicist and building administrator. Both worked in the area Bob had worked at Los Alamos at the same time, and both claimed that Bob was a technician at Los Alamos. So here's another transcript. That is a very weird picture. So Bob was started working at Los Alamos laboratory. So I think this is the article, but can't actually click on it. I guess this is what it says. To Lazar, physicist, Los Alamos, Mason physics facility. And the important thing is the jet engine. I think he's been working on it for years. So Jeremy Corbell. I don't know how to feel about Jeremy Corbell because he has an investment in a lot of crazy stuff being real. Not real, but he has an investment in making these movies about the supernatural and the conspiracy. Because before Bob Lazar, let's see, he made a bunch of stuff. So Hunt for the Skinwalker, Patient 17, Lazar Cosmic Whistleblower, Storm Area 51, which is that meme. Yeah, he made a bunch of stuff when it comes to all this stuff, and plus he has a website which is Extraordinary Beliefs, which you know, has all his stuff right here as well. I've never actually been to his website too much. Of course, he's got to have that Joe Rogan thing because he's been on it. No better advertising than being on Joe Rogan. UFO debunkers beware. Oh, interesting. Actually, let me see something. I'm curious. Up here it is. Shop, of course. See, I'm always skeptical of a lot of people who say they want to get the truth out there, say they want to do this, do that, blah, blah, but then always have their monetary side of things. Because of course he got paid for the Netflix special. Of course he got, you know, money for all that stuff, got funding. And I actually have, like, I'm a little bit skeptical of Bob Lazar as well, because this is Bob Lazar's website of his company, United Nuclear, where he sells fireworks and chemicals and all that stuff. And that too has a huge shop of, not just shop of like random stuff. No, this is all Area 51 stuff. Like, when Bob claims he's not making money off of this stuff, that he's just, you know, wants the truth to be out there, I don't know about that. He's got a book, Dreamland, forwarded by George Knapp, an autobiography of Bob Lazar. I might read this one day. We'll see. If you guys want to see me review this book, let me know, because I'd be interested in his. I mean, I kind of know his story already. I got the gist of it. You can kind of find it everywhere, but if reading the book itself, how many pages is it? How many pages we got? And you can get it signed. For how much more? Bob Lazar himself can sign his book, which I'm assuming probably gonna cost you a little bit more. So anywho, get back to it. Where did I leave off? So technician. So finally got an interview with the guy that wrote the, oh yeah, this is in the Joe Rogan Experience, which I have seen this one, where supposedly Jeremy Corbell got an interview with some guy, but say talk to you, I think there's some contradictory stuff. Did you ever follow up to actually verify his claim that he was a physicist, or did you just take that as face value? And I took it at face value. I think this is the author. So I spoke with Terry England in August 2021 to confirm the account that Jeremy Corbell gave of their conversation. England did not recall making the statement attributed to Corbell. I think this is the guy who wrote the original article. So I kind of took it at face value. So anyways, he asked, did you claim that he was a physicist? And he said, no, I kind of took it at face value. I talked to a lot of guys up there at Los Alamos who were nuclear physicists, and I pretty much accepted that what they said. Did you speak to some people to ask if he was a physicist? No, maybe I should have, but had no reason to doubt him at the time. In Jeremy Corbell's recent documentary, he said they talked to you, and you told him that you had confirmed he was a physicist. I don't remember saying that. It's possible, but I don't remember saying that because I don't remember doing it. He said that you told him if you hadn't looked into that, you would have been blackballed in the community. He said that? Yeah, I don't think so. So, not a pretty picture for Jeremy Corbell if you want to believe this source, because, and it's not surprising either. Like, you know, money is on the line for people to buy into this stuff. So when it comes to finagling your way to that goal, it's not surprising that Jeremy Corbell would do this, because a lot of people before Jeremy Corbell who did you know, documentaries, lectures, whatever, when you look behind the scenes of all those stuff, of all the conspiracy stuff, no matter what format it's in, there's always some money behind the scenes. So that kind of makes it you know, a bit harder to swallow because of that. So, let's see, the physicist. So let's keep going. In addition to England's recollection that he did not try to verify Bob Lazar's role at Los Alamos, Lazar himself gave an interview on the radio show The Billy Goodman Happening on December 20th, 1989, where he gave more details about the timeline and nature of his role at Los Alamos. I have 2 master's degrees, one in physics, one in electronics. I wrote my thesis on MHD, which is magnetohydrodynamics, excuse me. You know, fun fact, I am a college student currently for physics, so you would think I know how to pronounce this stuff, but I don't. Anyways, and speaking of which, using my limited knowledge of physics, because again, I'm still in college currently, still working on it, we can actually go over Bob Lazar's science, but we'll do that at a later part. I worked at Los Alamos for a few years as a technician and then a physicist in the polarized proton section, dealing with the accelerator there. Okay, so that's Bob's claim. And for the record, when we do the science section later, I'm not going to have you take my word for it. I will have resources in the description verifying whatever I'm trying to compare it to, because obviously I know I'm not a college graduate yet, and so I don't have the knowledge for that. Not that I didn't learn, it's just that I don't expect you guys to take my word for it, nor should you. Like, don't take anybody's word on the internet of anything unless they have sources, multiple sources, and proper links to those sources. Which is what I noticed in a lot of videos on YouTube, nobody has sources. And that's what I want to change with this channel. Everything I put on this channel, there will be sources in the description of where this information is coming from, how credible it is, yada yada, all that good stuff. Anywho, in this interview, a month after Knapp's first report identifying him, Bob claims he was hired as a technician and remained in that role for a few years before becoming a physicist. However, Bob confirms in the Los Alamos Monitor article that he had only just moved to Los Alamos the month before. Separately, Los Alamos has verified that he began to work at the lab at May 18th, 1982. Okay. If he had only begun work at the lab a little more than a month before his interview with Terry England for the Monitor article and was a technician at the lab for a few years, he could not have been a physicist at the time a Los Alamos Monitor article was published. So yeah, kind of caught here. A little bit of contradiction on Bob's part. I'm not aware of any lab employees who have made public statements regarding Bob's work at Los Alamos. George Knapp has claimed that he has spoken with former employees who worked with Bob and verified that he was a physicist. However, these claims were made informally and off the record. Knapp has said that those employees were friends of Lazar's and has specifically named Joe Vaninetti as being one who confirmed it. I don't know why I'm pronouncing that so hard. I think repetition gives me like tongue twister. I don't know. Whatever. However, Vaninetti has never said anything publicly regarding Lazar's role at the lab. Oh, excuse me. There is substantial evidence Vaninetti had significant interest in UFOs and was involved in UFO research with Bob before and after Bob claims to have worked at S4. For example, Bob and Joe Vaninetti had visited the vicinity of Groom Lake Area 1 in the months before Bob claimed to have worked at the site. Let's check out this link. What do we got? Below is Bob Lazar's entry as it appears in October, Los Alamos National Library telephone directory. Okay, so basically, so far what we got is he was definitely at Los Alamos, right? He was definitely there, but it seems like he was more of a technician than an actual physicist. There's no evidence that he's a physicist, but more of a technician. And I know a lot of you have been saying, man, going through this as I'm reading this, it was the government, man. They covered it all up. And don't worry, we will get to that part later. Okay, I have now received telephone directory, yada yada. Let's see if there's anything of interest here. More links, more stuff. Like I said, it's easy. A lot of links within links in this stuff. I will let you guys get into it if you want to. Okay. Vaninetti later attended media interviews with Bob and even plays a minor role in Bob's story where he accompanies Bob to a Las Vegas casino for a clandestine meeting with Bob's former supervisor at S4, Dennis Mariani. Yeah. So interesting that he could just give a name. I doubt this will pop anything up. Ancestry, Lazar synopsis, death notices. Yeah, not much. Not much. Okay. So interesting. Vaninetti later attended media interviews with Bob and even played a minor role in Bob's story where he accompanies Bob to Las Vegas casino for a meeting with Bob's former supervisor at S4, Dennis. That's interesting. So Dennis, for those that know about Bob's story, again, Joe Rogan podcast, if you listen to that, you kind of know. This was his little supervisor, I guess, at S4. And supposedly the story is Bob gets caught, he gets arrested, interrogated at the county sheriff's office, then later was supposed to report to that Air Force base. I forgot the name of it already, where he got interrogated again. And then we have another meeting here at a casino with the same guy, which is, I don't know, weird. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Am I the only one who thinks it's a little bit weird? But I don't know. Like, why meet a military officer at a casino from Area 51? Like, what could it possibly be about? This, I don't know if this is, hang on. Meeting, yeah, this is later attended media. Did he accompany Bob? Okay, I don't know. Timeline's a bit whack. The following are the first published interviews with the former Los Alamos National Laboratory employees who knew or worked with Bob in the lab. The physicist. So, I was able to identify 2 former lab employees who worked directly with Bob and were able to speak for what he did at Los Alamos and the circumstances of his departure. The first former lab employee is the physicist who ran the lab Bob claimed he worked in as a physicist, the polarized proton section. That physicist is John Jarmer. So John Jarmer, research affiliate Los Alamos Lab. So, let's see. Where is it? We're looking for. Whoop! Get out of here. Get out of here. We're basically looking for his research, a name, something with his research on, because this is researchgate.net. Let us see. So I guess John Jarmer was. Do we have any authors here? Okay. Well, here's what we'll do. He must. Maybe he was a copy to do John Jarmer, paste. Okay, I'll hit enter. Goddamn. He's got a Facebook, Ancestry.com, a lot of that. So, images of John Jarmer. I'm trying to find a. So we know that John Jarmer, Bob Lazar, and Giovanetti's lab directory entries. We know they're in the entries. I would like to. The publications. Let's just look at one of them. Citations. I just want to see one name of his in one of these works. Carson. Photon. Correlation parameter measures between that. Mega electron volts. Or yada yada. I just want to see his name on one. Like you already have the directories, but seeing his name attached to a paper or some research thing. Show all 23 authors. Here we go. There we go. J.J. Jarmer. Person is not on ResearchGate and hasn't claimed his research yet. But according to this, he worked on some stuff here. Alright. Well, his name is attached there at least. So, name's attached to some research. It's got a directory, so take that for what you will. Jarmer worked at the lab for over 2 decades in the polarized proton section. John Jarmer, Bob Lazar, and Giovanetti. The lab directories. Bob's friend and colleague who worked in the lab as a technician with him is listed as an author on multiple original research papers alongside John Jarmer. So that's interesting. I have confirmed with multiple former lab employees and lab documentation that Jarmer worked in the polarized protein section as Bob Lazar's direct supervisor. The following excerpts are from an interview of physicist John Jarmer conducted on July of 2021. Let's check it out. I think this was one of the more interesting interviews. Does Bob Lazar ring a bell? Yes, it does. I was trying to verify that he actually was a physicist working on that project. No, he's not a physicist to the best of my knowledge. You tell me what role you remember him having. Well, when I was at Los Alamos, the lab working, he did some electrical technician work that I'm aware of. There is no reference to him ever having a background in physics. If he does, he should be able to put forth his degree credentials wherever they're from. Could you tell me a little bit about what kind of work he would have done? possibly some electronics associated with the project that he was working in support of. I mean, it could be. I'm not saying that this is anything related to what he's claiming or what he may have done, but as an example of what support electricity tech would do, would be if you were setting up an experiment and you needed to have an interface module to go between the detectors that were being used, interfacing into the computer and putting that system together, and the cabling. That would be an example. Not what he may have done, but what a support tech would do. Was the lab close to the public? Would you have had to go through security to get there? Yes, you would have had to have clearance and a badge to be able to get into the site where I worked. So he would have had clearance. I don't know the status of any of the clearance he would have had, but you did have to show your ID badge to have access to the site. Do you have any experience with him? What was your read on him? He was there for a limited period of time and he didn't overly impress me as being the sharpest knife in the drawer or anything like that. That's what I'll leave it at. Pardon my dumbass pronunciation and reading, but anyways, you'll notice that in a lot of these articles, I don't know how much we'll read in the video today, but this kind of opinion of Bob is common with a few people. You were there for a whole time that he was there. I retired in 2006, so that span I was there would have covered the time he was there. I've heard that the reason Bob lost his job was that he was using government property to work on personal projects. I don't have a comment relative to that. A brief follow-up was conducted in 2022. When you worked for my section, I can't even remember the length of time, but it wasn't too long. But I can't make any comment on what happened after he wasn't working with us. When I say us, I mean myself and the technicians that were working with me. But he worked as an electrical technician on his capacity in your lab? Yes, that's correct. Would you have any reason to believe that he moved into a higher role? No. As I said, when he stopped working with us, he was, I'll use the term, a temporary guy that was working with us. After he stopped working with us, I didn't follow him any way, form, or fashion. I got on with the detailed work that our section was involved in and moved on from that point. If he worked at the lab after he worked for us in the polarized target section, then he would be able to give us the name of the group or individuals that he worked with. Do you happen to remember the name of the other technician that worked with Bob? I believe Joe Vaninetti. An interesting name to pronounce. Maybe I'm just a dumbass, I don't know. Was one of them, but my understanding was there was 3. Joe Vaninetti was one for sure. I would have to think about that for a while before I would say what the other technicians are. Well, the second former lab employee identified who worked with Bob had multiple roles at the lab, but had engaged with Bob in an administrative role. I'm not able to mention what role specifically as he did not want to be identified. I'll refer to him as Fred. So, administrative role that he identified. So, the second employee there. Let's see if his story is anything similar. Does the name Bob Lazar ring any bells? Yeah, it does. It do. I spoke to John Jarmer. He did remember Bob and was able to tell me a little bit about his recollection, but I was hoping you might be able to tell me a little more. I am really reluctant to get into that. Describes his role in relation to John's laboratory. So yes, I know the person in question, but I really don't want to get involved in anything having to do with him. I am really trying to get a sense of who Bob was and the kind of role that he had there, and even if you were to tell me that completely off the record, I would be very curious to hear about that, and I do understand the hesitation. Okay, the really short part of the answer is Bob is very smart, but a crooked, bent person. I don't even know that he finished high school. He certainly had no college education. He never worked for Los Alamos Laboratory. Okay, he was employed by Butler. Fred later clarified he meant Kirk Meyer, who supplied contract technicians to the laboratory. And beyond that, I've heard and seen some of the stuff that had been published, and most of it is a fantasy. He worked at the laboratory for a short time, got crosswise with the management because he was misusing the lab telephone, and so they let him go, which was easy because he didn't work for the lab. Back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, there was a US government supported thing called the WATS, Wide Area Telephone Service. If you had an access number, you could get on and call pretty much anyone in the country without any charge. And so he was running some kind of business using the telephone system. Just to be clear, he was not a physicist at the lab. No. Do you know how long he worked there for? a matter of a few months, and then again, it's been 40 years. It was less than a year. Bob's wife also worked at the lab. Her name was Carol Lazar. Yep, again, as a contract technician. I was told that she had a contract to fix the alpha probes. Do you have an awareness of that? To fix what? I guess they had a contract to fix the alpha radiation probes? Yes, the detectors. They basically had a thin foil window which was easily damaged, and they had set up to replace those busted windows. Do you have any recollection of anything that happened after he left the lab? Well, he did run the 1 hour photo processing business. At some point, he shut that down and left. So that does corroborate with an earlier source that said he did have a photo business. Okay. So one more former lab employee. Let me skim through here. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna read every single excerpt, otherwise we'd be here all day, but you can kind of get the sense from these two. So we have even more stuff here. This one was interesting. Dr. Robert Krangle. Let me just quickly skim and double check. Yeah, so to sum up this one, basically Dr. Robert Krangle was interviewed by Jeremy Corbell, which I guess according to this interview, he kind of confirmed that Bob was a physicist because of the way he dressed, that physicists dressed a certain way, you know, technicians dressed another way, and like janitors dressed another certain way. And basically in the follow-up interview, he kind of changed his mind a little bit. Like he kind of contradicted himself. And then with another interview with again employees of National Lab, they kind of say, well, there is really no dress code. It would be kind of hard to tell who's a physicist, who's a technician, and etc., etc. So this is again kind of not painting Jeremy Corbell's interview in the most, I'll say, credible way. So I don't know. Again, I'll let you guys read this part. It's pretty interesting. We're gonna move on to the next source because you know, we got what, 10 sources to go through? 12 kind of shticks to go through. We're only on the second one and we're 36 minutes in. Oh god damn. All right, anywho, let's see. I think we already went through this. So a letter from Los Alamos telling Bob he should ask Kirk Meyer for his work record since he worked for Kirk Meyer and not National Lab, which is yeah, so pretty much the gist of a lot of this is Bob Lazar did work at Los Alamos for a short time, but he did not work for Los Alamos. He worked for this subcontractor called Kirk Meyer, and he only worked there for a short time as a technician. That's pretty much, according to many of these resources, the extent of his experience at Los Alamos. And you might, again, a lot of people probably wondering, what does this have to do with the UFO or Area 51? Be patient, we're getting to that, my boys, and probably like one girl who may or may not be watching. Anyways, let's move on. John Layer also said several times that Bob Lazar worked on testing and repairing alpha probes at Los Alamos. Here's a Wired article. I think this one was a bit weird. This article is a bit weird. Let's see. Kirk Meyer ad listing roles they hired, which is right here. Bob says he installed a satellite dish. You can check that out. Sienna Green turns to gold. Sienna? What? Okay, free advertising on my channel, I guess.
Oh, you know what that is? That's where we put in, back then they were called
I think
Earth
this is from his
stations,
movie.
big satellite dish. But, you know, now they're 2 feet. They used to be 7 feet across and larger. And, yeah, I remember putting in that pad and putting in a big, you know, Earth station satellite receiver there. But, yeah, that was around 82 or 83, something.
Yep, so there's Bob saying he did the thing. 90s heirs marriage certificate source Bob and Carol were electronics or electric technicians or whatever. It's right here. Again, I'm not going to click on every single one of these and go over every single one of these because I will leave the link in the description. You guys are welcome to do this stuff. I'll say as many times as I have to because I know there's going to be that one guy in the comments who's going to be like, well, why don't you click it? I want to see it. You know? Prove it, bro. Anywho, alleged interview of Los Alamos tech who knew Bob as a tech at Los Alamos. So, let me see. Another interesting... I think this more or less corroborates the kind of... A lot of these interviews kind of say the same or similar stuff to what we just previously read. Some of them don't paint Bob in the lightest sense. So again, I'll let you guys go over that. The Wired article is about gun and fireworks show Bob ran in a desert called Desert Blast from 87 to 99. Here's a video of Desert Blast 12. Bob, the organizer, can be seen at 50 seconds. From memory, Bob learned to make fireworks from an Italian family he met that made them through generations. Part of his business at United Nuclear is selling fireworks material, which has been busted on for several occasions. So, yeah, you can actually see.
This gathering represents every bomb
you'll see anywhere. So you've got pyrotechnicians competing against each other to see who can impress.
So one interesting thing I noticed, you know, there's always this stuff about liars, you know, how they behave. Do they blink a lot? Do they look away? A lot of arm motion is usually associated with lying. You could look up a lot of many different psychological papers on lying and stuff, but I definitely noticed that Bob has a bit of a different pep in his step when talking here compared to when he's talking about a story.
You know everybody, so it's quite a collection of everything.
Yeah, anyways, I'll let you guys
12 years ago
watch this. This is just basic. This has nothing to do with a lot of stuff. He did a bunch of, you know, fireworks stuff in the desert, which, you know, whatever. From memory, Bob learned blah blah blah, and then so United Nuclear, which is that website I showed you with his business and selling stuff, which, by the way, that website kind of looks like something out of the 80s and 90s, so it is a weird website. But he has been busted on several occasions. So US versus United Nuclear Scientific Supplies. Yeah, so this is going to be also another running theme of him getting busted from his business for either selling illegal stuff or, you know, shady practices, stuff like that. Let's get on to number 3. If you guys hear what sounds like a leaf blower outside, it's because it is winter here and people have been plowing shit all day. So apologies if you hear that. Hopefully the noise gate works, but who knows. Anyways, source number 3, or I guess section 3, whatever you want to call it. So Bob Lazar, who then got caught and arrested for pandering just months after claiming to be at S4. He claimed he only installed a computer system there despite pleading guilty. But the police affidavit shows they found the brothel apartment lease agreement with Bob's name on it. Also, a hooker said Bob interviewed her. He also installed surveillance cams in the track rooms. Okay, so this is the part of Bob's story where it really makes me doubt his Area 51 story. You might be wondering, well, what does this have to do with Area 51? Well, here's the thing. Bob Lazar got involved in these brothels, and I've often seen people brush these off like, yeah, it's just a brothel, Bob, you know, Bob's a crazy guy, he like guns and hookers, blah blah blah. And to me, it's like, I don't think people understand what this means. This isn't like a medieval brothel from a movie, or like you're playing The Witcher 3 and you go into a brothel like that. No, it's not like that. This is like straight up prostitution. When it comes to brothels like this and Bob being involved in the way he was involved, it's like prostitution, pimping at best, straight up human trafficking at worst. Like, this is not a good person who does this kind of stuff. And if you think about this, like, to me, if he has the moral compass where he has no problem doing this stuff, and again, this is literally at the time he told this story that this stuff was happening, and there's some evidence before and after for this stuff happening. If he has the moral compass where he has no problem doing this, what's to say then do you think he would really have a problem lying about a story? of Area 51, UFOs and aliens, especially since it's proven to make him money. Like, he had movie deals, documentary deals, he sells stuff off his website. I guarantee you, on the stuff off of Jeremy Corbell's website or any other website that has to do with Bob Lazar, I guarantee you he gets a cut of that. Like, I think Bob is sitting pretty when it comes to making money off of this story. Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing. And there are some stuff here that makes it even worse. So, police document if you want to go over that. They stayed here on the brothel in the past. So yeah, here's him outright stating it.
Amassed quite a bit of money. We were looking for a business to buy into. One of the things we invested in was one of the legal brothels in northern Nevada.
Yeah, legal. Here's the thing. It's not exactly legal. It is, but it isn't. It's more like loopholes and stuff. Like, if it was legal, why did he get... Like, if what he was doing was 100% legal, why did he get arrested for it, you know? So, yeah, I think that's an outright lie. Even George Knapp said he was a rebel who was into guns and hookers, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, and there's some sources here, which I think we'll get into later. Like, if you go through every single resource here and you read the stuff, I can't remember exactly which one it is, but maybe we'll get to it later. But there's been some sources that claim that he was interviewing chicks as young as like 14 years old, trying to get him into prostitution, saying there's a lot of money. Dude, that's bad. Like that makes you an absolute one of the biggest scumbags of the earth if that source is true. Which, again, a lot of these sources corroborate the same story or a similar story, and the source is believable. Again, check it out yourselves, make of it what you will yourselves. But if a person's willing to do this, is lying about a UFO story really that much of a stretch? You know? Anywho, for a guy who tells a crowd at Rachel in 1993 that he had Professor Duxler in Hosfield, I'm gonna say Hosfield, hopefully that's right, at MIT and Caltech. Duxler was not found there by Friedman when he inquired. There was a Hosfield and Duxler who were found to be Bob's high school and Pierce College teachers who were there, which there is record of Bob attending. MIT and Caltech also told Friedman that Bob had not attended either school. Bob saying he had Duxler and Hosfield at MIT at Caltech at 4530, so let's check it out.
You know, it's just... Could you reveal some of your professors at MIT?
This is that 1993 Q&A.
MIT and Caltech?
Yeah, if you want. I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them.
Yeah, and like you see here, again, the difference between how he talks here and how he talks there. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing really to go on, but just to me, I like to take note of it, you know?
And,
like I said, often people are lying about a certain thing, and then you look at their talking about natural speech, they talk often differently. One thing I like to do to see if someone's lying is talk to them about the thing you suspect of lying, notice how they behave, how they talk, and then start a conversation sometime later about something else. I don't know, football, and just see how they talk. And there is a stark difference. So, like, you know, something to just keep in mind.
Was another.
Hostfield?
Hosfield, I was right.
H-O-H-S-F-I-E-L-D or something along those lines.
Jesus Christ, I don't know if you guys heard that. My cat just like jumped off my bed and on the ground, and that scared the fucking shit out of me. I thought I was getting attacked from behind from the house intruder. Anywho.
These are at MIT or Caltech?
Hosfield was at MIT. Duxler was at Caltech.
And there you go. His claims right there. So, the start shows Bob's new Corvette. Start shows Bob's new Corvette with the plates, MJ12 plates, which, you know, Majestic 12 is a whole nother conspiracy. Yeah, there's a huge part of this that kind of links little parts of Bob's story to other stuff, which, you know, whatever. Here's Hosfield and Bob's high school yearbook, so you'll just see it there. I won't click on it, you guys can check it out yourself. Here's William Duxler listed at Pierce College. Here's an article on Duxler when he retired in 2012. So, again, another outright lie where he claims these two professors were at MIT and Caltech, when in reality it was his high school and Pierce College. I don't know. Like, if the government is covering up his stuff, so I guess they must have moved these professors to a different college and just randomly, I don't know, it's weird. Like, how do you explain that, you know? Did the government just tell these two professors, all right, guys, I know you guys work at prestigious colleges, but but because this guy over there fucked up, I'm gonna need you guys. You go to college, you go to Pierce, and yeah, just do that. So, you know, kind of hard to justify this one. So here's the Rachel conference organizer who wrote about how Bob had once laughed at other UFO talkers and had bailed on going to a paid interview in Japan and kept the money. Yeah, this one's an interesting one. So again, I'm not gonna click it. You guys can read it yourself. But basically, Bob was supposed to go to Japan to talk about his story because Japan did have a whole Area 51 show, seminar, or whatever kind of thing. And he apparently took the money and just didn't show up. And I think the times he did show up, there were some very weird rules where like people weren't allowed to talk to him or something like that. And I don't know, like, you guys got to read this one. This story is definitely a weird one. Footage from Nippon UFO TV special Bob was meant to appear on. They held up his contract and asked why he didn't show up. Bob says he was threatened by Dennis. So that's his supervisor. That, you know, apparently him showing up on Nap's TV show was water under the bridge. But don't you fucking go to Japan, man. Go to Japan, we're gonna get you. They tell him that wouldn't be the worst. They tell him that it be worse to stay in the US than if he was threatened. Finally, they tell Bob they don't believe his excuse. See here. Oh, video's unavailable. Okay, well, that sucks. Okay, Stanton Friedman on Bob. So Stanton Friedman is the one who did a lot of research about his Caltech and stuff, and this one's a very interesting one. You guys remember Daily Motion? Man, it has been, god damn, this has been forever. Who remembers Daily Motion, man? This is a blast from the past.
Fraud is a special problem with regard to...
But yeah, this guy appeared, he's a legit physicist, you know, you could go find his credentials everywhere. He appeared in a lot of documentaries, interviews, blah, blah, blah. And this guy did his research into Bob Lazar as well. So on top of all the other sources we have, let's listen to what he has to say, because this is very interesting.
UFOs. In the early days, it was mostly people who were trying to outdo each other in their stories of being contactees. They met with aliens. They were taken on trips to the backside of the moon by aliens. And the next guy would say, well, I went to Jupiter, and so forth. And this was a limited subgroup of people, the contactees, as they were called. They had their own subculture. One of the people involved with that movement, Gabriel Green, died in 2001. He even ran for president on a ticket as a
Yeah, sorry about the quality. It's as good as it gets on there, I guess. So pardon the static and the weird stuff.
UFO contactee. The problem's gotten much more invidious since then, though. We have people ostensibly with credentials who are frauds and who have glommed onto pop culture. Two that come to mind. Robert Scott Lazar, supposedly a nuclear physicist with a master's in physics from MIT, a master in electronics from Caltech, who supposedly worked at Area 51, back engineering flying saucers, figured out how they work using element 115. It's a long, detailed story. You can buy the video someplace else, not from me. I did a lot of checking on Bob. I tried to meet with him twice. I was supposed to on one occasion, and he didn't go along. I checked at MIT. I checked at Caltech. Neither one ever heard of him. Well, but the government wiped his records clean is the response. I talked to the legal counsel at MIT. No way to do that. I talked with the guy who has the degrees, the commencement lists and all that sort of thing. No mention of Lazar. None of the yearbooks show Lazar. You need it for a master's thesis. For a master's degree, you need a thesis. I talked to the guy who holds those. No Lazar item there. He was asked publicly, when did you get your master's from MIT? Well, let me see now. I think it was, probably 1982. I have friends who went to MIT. I was accepted there myself, couldn't afford to go out of high school. And nobody who gets a master's degree in physics from MIT doesn't know what year he got it in. He was asked to name some of his professors. Well, let's see now. He named somebody, Bill, somebody, I won't use his name on the air. I checked on him. It was not a common name, fortunately. He was a physicist. The only trouble is, Bob said he would remember him from Caltech. This individual, Bill, never taught at Caltech. He only taught at Pierce Junior College. Now, Bob himself had mentioned Pierce to me on the phone. He did go there. Now, that's in Southern California, and he was going there at the same time that he was supposedly attending MIT, 2,500 miles east of there. One heck of a commute. If you can go to MIT, you don't go to Pierce Junior College. But beyond that, I checked with his high school. He finished in the bottom third of his high school class. You can't get into MIT if you're outside usually the top 10, 15, 20% of your class. Bottom third, never. His Element 115 scheme won't work. Sounds good, science fiction. So, I checked with Los Alamos. He is in the phone book there. Doesn't that prove that he was a scientist working there? No, it certainly doesn't prove he was a scientist, but if you look at the phone book page, up at the very top it says, this phone book for employees of the Los Alamos National Laboratory, the Department of Energy, Kirk-Meyer Corporation, several other companies. Right after Bob's name, and he was only in one phone book issue, they issue them every several months, it says K/M, that's Kirk-Meyer, a subcontractor. He worked out at the Maison facility. Don't need a clearance for that. People come in from all over the world, physicists, to do experiments, and he was a technician working out there. And the story goes on and on beyond that. And I get people telling me, well, I don't see why you don't believe him. He seems so sincere. Sincerity is not a check on truth.
Trading gold miners? You love.
So anyways, yeah, there you go. So like I said earlier, it would be a weird way to cover up his stuff if the government was behind that. I don't know, man. Especially like the professors he listed. That would be a very weird thing to do. So, let's see. Where did I leave off? Where the hell did I leave off? Okay, we just did that. George Knapp. Not even George Knapp believed Bob went to MIT or Caltech, which George Knapp has a lot of contradicting statements throughout the years.
But
like George Knapp, I think is another guy, just like Jeremy Corbell, that's invested in Bob. People believe in Bob. I mean, look, he's a legit journalist, right? He is, and he reports on a lot of stuff, but he also reports on a lot of stuff that's very dubious at best. So I don't know, man.
The important thing is with Lazar is that the information about his educational background was in the very first story that we aired. The very first report that identified him, we said we could not verify his background. And I will confide to you this. I don't believe he ever went to those schools. I don't believe Bob Lazar could get a degree from Caltech or MIT for a very simple reason. At American universities, when you get a degree, an undergraduate degree, you have to take all kinds of core courses in subjects that you may not be interested in.
True that. I can confirm. Anyways, it's kind of weird. If George Knapp doesn't believe he actually took those schools, why does he believe in the story? So it's kind of weird. Why do you that's what I'm saying. He's invested in Bob, people believing in Bob's story. Because if you don't believe he actually went to those schools, then and that he's lying, why believe everything else, you know? And plus his criminal background and all that stuff. So I don't know, man. So Linda Moulton Howe recounts how Bob told her he never went to MIT and Caltech.
A lot of time on that Memorial Day weekend, and I believe it was 1990. And here is the moment of talking with Bob Lazar that is indelible in my mind.
Okay, you guys can check that out yourself. I don't know how credible or uncredible she is. I don't know anything about her, so. And here's Bob saying he went to Pierce College, so again, you can just look at that stuff. Okay, a guy who seems to have copied the Demon Core story, including the reactor design. The Demon Core story is a true story about a scientist who died opening and closing the reactor Bob had claimed he replaced a scientist S4 who died trying to open an alien reactor. So, this one's whatever. Because the thing is, for those of you that don't know the Demon Core was basically a ball with radioactive material in it, or I think it was made out of radioactive material. I don't remember which one it was, but it ended up killing ended up killing a few scientists. And people like this one say that Bob's reactor to the UFO that he drew and designed sounds an awful lot like that. It could just be how alien reactors look. If it had to do with element 115 and you know, it's a radioactive core, who knows, maybe it could be how it is. So I don't know that this one holds up scrutiny. Yeah, so this is supposedly what Bob's stuff looked like. That I guess you remove the stuff, there's a little thing in there, and you know, something. We'll go over the science of his stuff a little bit later. This one's whatever. It's up to you if you want to believe it or not. But the Element 155 story from the Scientific American article came out just 2 weeks prior. Billy Meyer saucer, reticulate alien origins from Betty and Barney. So yeah, Bob says that he supposedly got briefing that the UFOs were from what's it called? Something reticulate, a star system, which in the Joe Rogan podcast he said some of them were archaeological digs. I don't know. The origin I think doesn't matter too much. And finally, the story of the government having acquired a number of UFOs, one of which they could fly, from John Layer, who told the story to Knapp 2 years before Bob came out with his S4 story. See Layer tell Knapp the story in 1987 for yourself. So, again, George Knapp was well into UFO stuff and this kind of stuff before Bob. So, you know. John Layer. I don't want any of this. Visit Qatar. Yeah, I'm good.
Found out that the government has retrieved.
Yeah, this guy. I don't know. I don't know about that. Like as you can see, he's involved in literally everything. So I don't really particularly find him super credible. I don't know, man. There's a lot of stuff with these very famous conspiracy theories that once you look behind the source of the story becomes very dubious. Like for example, one of my favorite stories that I don't believe in, but it's a fun story, is the Dulce base, like underground alien war or whatever. And then when you look at the guy who tells the story, he ends up having a history of mental issues. So yeah, it's okay. Let's go back to this. Both Gene Huff and John Layer have told the story about how they all met. The story goes that Bob and Gene Huff met Layer before Bob's S4 story, and they obtained Layer's UFO files, including the Billy Myers tapes, in exchange for a house appraisal. You can check it out yourself. Here's a cut clip of Layer saying he showed Lazar the Myers tape. Bob saying the UFO was like Myers' saucer. Meyer was later busted when pics he said were of alien women turned out to be screen grabs from the Dean Martin TV special, which I think I've seen before. Yeah, so again, Bob, again, this guy literally was caught faking stuff, and then Bob says, oh yeah, my stuff looked like your stuff. So, again, it's not a very good look. When Bob gave his first brief interview in silhouette under the alias Dennis, that was filmed in a news van parked in John Layer's driveway. See for yourself. Okay. Bruh. If you're gonna... Like, I'm trying to think of okay, so when Bob did his first interview, right? He was silhouetted, right? So you couldn't actually tell who he was. He decided to use the alias Dennis, and Dennis was the name of his supervisor. And supposedly, it was him and one other dude. What's his name? I've got that dude who worked with him in Area 51, who, like, it was apparently a very, very tiny team, which we'll go into the problems with that later. And it's like, so you silhouetted because you don't want your identity revealed, but your identity being revealed to those that matter, that being Area 51 guy, government people. You don't think that's kind of stupid? Like, first of all, your voice. Second of all, you said you named himself Dennis. You don't think Dennis at Area 51 would be like, hey, wait a minute. So it's almost like, I don't know, dude. It's almost like he's making fun of the story itself. I don't know. It's weird. Like, the motivation behind being silhouetted, if you look into Bob's story, it doesn't make sense because it'd be very, very easy to figure out who that was. Especially since apparently he just got caught, just got interrogated by them, and now he wants to go in here for quote-unquote insurance that they won't kill him or something. I don't know, man. So, up to you guys to decide about that. So, a guy that allegedly faked a W-2. A W-2 showed Bob had an employer that did not exist, yada yada. So, him faking more stuff. I'll let you guys check that out. And more stuff here. Let's see, a guy who took Bigelow night UFO spotting in 1990 near the same spot he took others previously. Bigelow heard a rustle and spotted Lazar letting loose a helium-filled Mylar balloon toward Papoose. Biggs told Rogan this. So yeah, they were apparently UFO spotting, and Bob apparently was trying to release helium-filled balloon. So almost like he wanted them to see something. So you know, it could have been the same thing for when he first apparently took his friends to go see the UFO test. So I don't know, man. Even Bigelow himself, who again, Bigelow is a businessman who is invested in a lot of conspiracy stuff like Skinwalker Ranch, etc. And he is invested in Bob Lazar story. So this guy is a businessman through and through. Yeah, so Bigelow said Lazar made claims about material that didn't check out. According to Bob's court documents, Bigelow paid him $2,500 a month, which for back then was a lot of money. You know, don't include inflation today's day. That's a lot. That's a good money back then in the 90s. Company Bigelow started with Lazar, which again, money motivation. So yeah, no. Of course, unbelievably, Bigelow still believed Bob Lazar after that, because I think Bob Lazar is a business investment. I don't think Bigelow actually believes in him. So interestingly, Bigelow's Zeta Reticuli 2 lab was incorporated with Bob Lazar listed around the time he was running a brothel for which he was arrested for. So again, the guy's just a good con artist. I don't know if this is to believe. Also noteworthy is that George Knapp never mentioned during the interview that he worked for Bigelow for several years in the late 90s to early 2000s for NIDS. By the way, Gannett flights came to Area 51 over Papoose twice a night, according to Glenn Campbell. Their landing lights shown at the Rachel area. A51 also conducted tests on their other aircraft. So blah blah blah. Lazar says some of this himself. Basically, there were lights in the sky over those ranges for one reason or another. Let's check it out.
Yeah, I really don't even come close to believing it all, and it's not just because I'm skeptical, it's because it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I even, though it's stepping on a lot of people's toes, you know, I think 99% of the sightings out here are absolutely not flying saucers. Most people are watching 737s coming to Groom Lake, and they may...
Okay, you guys can check that out yourself. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it for this one. I do recommend checking this thread out. It's very interesting. It'll get you down the rabbit hole. So, you know, it might disappoint you a little bit at the end, like it disappointed me. So, a guy who made money from his story, which we already kind of got a sense of that from what we've seen so far from his website, from, you know, obviously movie deals, selling the movie rights to Goober Peters, New Line Cinema. Yep. So, you can actually see that for ourselves. I'm not going to read it out loud, but you guys can check it out. Let's see, making a government Bible videotape with his friend Gene Huff, who I believe was also a businessman, which they advertised in newspapers and mags and sold for $30 a pop. You better check it out yourself. Allegedly got a royalty deal from testers who made a model of the saucer which sold for $25. So, again, allegedly, so we're not going to take this as fact. Allegedly made money from countless TV appearances. Allegedly made money from autobiography book called Dreamland. Sold merch since day one. Is this ink? E50, E1.5 mugs, t-shirts, etc. So the reason they say allegedly from TV appearances and autobiographies and all that stuff, and because it's really difficult to verify in movies and TV shows who gets paid what and how much and yada yada. Like I guarantee you, he got paid for Jeremy Corbell's Area 51 Flying Saucers and Bob Lazar, whatever it's called, that Netflix special, you know? I somehow doubt he just appeared on it for free and just did not get paid. Like, you know, you have to say allegedly because it's really hard to find all the pay stubs and all that stuff. But you can clearly see on his own website, there's merchandise. On Jeremy Corbell's website, there's merchandise. You know, the way the movie's made is clearly more closer to an entertainment film than actual documentary. Like, they're getting paid. I have no doubt in my mind they're getting paid. And he also started his own UFO radio show called UFO Line. Beyond Meat, plant-based ground. Okay, Lazar speaks truth. If you say so, Synapse 2K, if you say so. Oh my god, these ads, man. Alright, let's see. John Layer is fucking brutal to listen to. The shits just never stops coming out of his mouth. And it's a lot of people.
The last place I want to be tonight.
That's the spirit. Our guest tonight.
Okay, so Bob says the last place I want to be, but I don't believe him. Because he keeps saying that over and over again throughout the years. The last place he wants to be, he doesn't want to be in public, yada yada. So if you don't want to be there, why are you there? Anywho, a guy that says he flew into Area 51 even ate at the canteen there once. Fruhoff says someone told him recently that they saw Lazar there, but according to the president of Area 51 Veterans, T.D. Barnes, he had asked security guards and others who worked there at the time, and they all said Bob was never there. So this one is actually very interesting. So there's like former CIA Area 51 veterans, like a little club of people who worked at stuff like this. This guy apparently worked there, was a guard, and you know, claims Bob was never there. So I guess it's up to you who you want to believe. I would listen to it. This one's pretty interesting to listen to. Chris Mellon had quoted Eric Davis recently, although he got one detail wrong. Eric said Bob was off-site checking radiation badges and not at Area 51. So another claim that he was not at Area 51. Here's my interview with Fred Dunham, who worked as a security guard at Area 51 during Bob's supposed time. Bob had claimed he flew there before taking a bus to an S4 at Papoose. Excuse me. Fred says Bob was not at Area 51. He had checked the manifest. Fred had also been to Papoose, no secret base there, and the only road to Papoose was a rough as guts dirt road that a bus could not get down. So, another Reddit thread. A guy who said he used mysterious hand bone scanner. Not only was the Identimet 2000 in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which came out in 1977, was also in a ton of newspapers and magazine articles going back to 1969. It was used in all kinds of places, including university. Here's the article about it. So yeah, they make a big deal of this thing in both the Joe Rogan podcast and the documentary. Turns out, this thing's not really a big deal. It was kind of there. There was also a rumor that Bob friend Jim Tagliani had worked at Tonopah Test Range, where they did use the hand thing, Identimat 2000. TTR also said that the Site 4, which was a radar facility they used to test the radar signatures of craft being tested there, and Area 51. Did Bob get both the bone scanner and S4 idea from Jim Tagliani? Well, it does sound very similar, doesn't it? Here is Site 4 at TTR, bottom right. The test Site 4. So, you know, does sound very similar. Okay, we're almost done. A guy who George Knapp claimed passed a number of polygraph tests. According to Knapp's own reports from back in the day, Bob did 2 polygraph tests. The first was done by polygrapher Ron Slay. The report by Knapp stated that Bob failed a set of questions and passed another set. Ron then ruled the polygraph inconclusive. The second polygraph test was done by Terry Tavernetti. A month later, he asked Bob 4 sets of questions. Bob failed the first set of questions. According to Terry, Bob seemed to pass the next 3 sets of questions. He was going to say Bob passed, but instead decided to consult with 2 other polygrapher colleagues One agreed with Terry, the other thought Bob was retelling a story he learned by heart. So at the time, Terry decided not to give any statements on truthfulness. So if anybody doesn't know, polygraph tests are not reliable at all. So it even states here he has failed certain questions if he was telling the truth. But I don't consider polygraph tests reliable for me personally. There's just too much inconsistencies with them. Even if they're, let's say, more than half right, there's still too much too much room for error for me to believe in polygraph tests. I think even like a court today, polygraph tests are used as like a supplement to evidence, but never used as evidence itself because they are just not reliable. Okay, last one. So additional bits. A. Knapp claims Bob had a piece of 115 in front of a homemade particle accelerator. So this you can see in plenty of stuff between interviews, documentaries, stuff like that. He apparently has element 115, which I will talk about him owning that stuff later. He was going to flip the switch if the government came for him, and the explosion would have left a great big hole in Vegas. Did Knapp report it to the police? How about every news story about it in that? So, starting to blow some shit up? I don't know, man. Knapp had claimed for many years that he knew where some 115 is buried, and as a few years ago, so has Corbell. So of course, Corbell knows. Corbell knows all the shit. He just can't talk about it conveniently enough for him. That's one thing I've noticed about Jeremy Corbell. He'll make claims, but then say he can't talk about it. So, you know, it's hard to believe him. Yet, despite advocating for disclosure, they won't dig some up and send a grain in anonymously to be analyzed to help all of humankind, as Bob hasn't either, of course. Bob claims he saw a video of an experiment where some light was shown. Or Knapp claims he saw a video of an experiment where some light was shown over some 115 and the light bent. I saw a video of it too. You can kind of find it, and it's really nothing there. All it is just some light shown over some smoky tray. You can't, it's bad quality, you can't really tell what's going on. It doesn't look like much. But I don't know. Maybe he's talking about some different video, but it's nothing there really. Unfortunately, Corbell says when he looked for the complete tape, but Bob had taped over it with an episode of The Golden Girls. Isn't that convenient? He only managed to find a short clip that showed nothing happening. Knapp also said he had a copy of the tape, but lost it. Okay. See, here's my problem with this. If you have a tape of something as important as this, would you really leave it lying around just anywhere for it to be taped over or whatever? That shit would be in like a safe or a very safe space. Like, this is where I find it so hard to believe that they're just treating it like, oh, hi, I'm sorry, I just happened to lose it. Oops, silly me. Like, those tapes would have been a big fucking deal. And you're telling me you just happened to lose it? Or you happened to tape over it? Like, oh, come on, really? That just sounds like a convenient excuse to me. I don't know. For me, that one's a little bit too far. Like, that sounds like it's way too much of a convenient excuse. Bob claimed to have some 115 for 30 years, so why doesn't he repeat the experiment? Exactly. Bob claims 22 people were all were at S4 researching all the aspects of the 9 saucers, which I have a problem with that number. I'll talk about it later. Only 2, Barry, that was his name, full-time, and Bob part-time. So the 22 people, not all of them were even full-time. Part-time was assigned to reverse engineer the gravity drives. This would have been the greatest discovery of all time, yet despite the government putting over 100,000 people on the atomic bomb, they decided to put one guy named Barry and a part-timer named Bob on reverse engineering the saucer gravity drive. As Stanton Friedman said in regards to this, the government would have put more people on developing a new mousetrap. Yeah, I 100% agree with this. I cannot imagine something as critically important as advanced technology you wouldn't be slapping on no less than 100,000 people across the entire country. It would be weird. Because, dude, the moment people discovered you could split the atom, that it could potentially be a single bomb that could wipe out a big city, just think about this. You go from, you know, detonating bombs, which you would need countless bombs to flatten a city, to one single bomb completely wiping off the map. That is a huge fucking deal. And of course, they're gonna put as many heads as they can to get to that bomb first before the enemy. So if you're telling me they had advanced alien technology and only put 22 people on it, that is a very hard pill to swallow. We have to say, oh, well, gotta make it top secret. There's no way it can get out. There's been, I think it was in the Joe Rogan podcast where Bob himself stated, oh, it's the easiest secret to keep. It's been leaked many times. Just nobody believes it. Exactly. But even if you had 100,000 people working on this stuff and people leaked it, who the fuck is gonna believe them? You know what I mean? I mean, they would have been more believable than Bob because it would have made sense that so many people were working on it. But Bob's story just does not add up with the history of research and development. Anyway, Bob also claimed he was told Russian scientists were at S4. This is interesting, as Bob said to get to S4 you need to fly to Area 51 before busing to S4. The problem here is that Area 51 was a top secret base where they flew secret aircraft, etc. They primarily kept it secret from the Russians. Are we to believe Russian scientists flew into the base? The US kept top secret from the Russians? I don't believe that. That part I just don't believe. Like the U-2 spy plane and other craft specifically designed to spy on the Russians was designed at Area 51, and you're telling me they had Russian scientists there? Really? Yeah. Well, this is the end of this part. Damn, it's quite a long video, but hey, what are you gonna do? And as you can see, I couldn't even go over every single bit in detail, which I suppose I could make like an 8-hour long video, but you know, I myself did go over through this when I was initially screening this, but I recommend checking it out. This is a very thoroughly researched topic on Bob Lazar, and we're gonna talk about some more stuff in the next parts. So stay tuned. Here we go. Alright, so I think this video has gone on long enough, and I'm gonna draw my own little conclusion to this. So let's summarize a little bit. Bob Lazar, who bottom of his class in high school, supposedly went to MIT and Caltech, but not there. Did go to that one college. Yeah, I really should have wrote notes, but you know what I mean. That one college where it was stated he did go. Claimed to be a physicist at Los Alamos, but many sources pin him to just being a technician who worked for a subcontractor who was there for a short while, who got fired for abusing the phone system or abusing equipment. One of the two, depending on which source you believe. Now, we know that before he went with his Area 51 S4 story, he was massively in debt. Because there's a lot of evidence to show that he was massively in debt, that he did file for bankruptcy, and that, you know, after the whole story in '89 where he aired his story, he made many appearances, which I'm sure got paid because, for example, the Japanese studio pretty much outright said that, hey, they were gonna pay him. So usually you don't get these kind of disclosures, but because he didn't show up and kind of took the money and bounced, that he was obviously getting paid for a lot of stuff. Between movie deals, you go on his website with all the merchandise he has, plus all the documentaries and shows. Now, I'm pretty sure he didn't get paid for Joe Rogan's. I imagine he probably didn't, but like Joe Rogan podcast is probably one of the best advertising you could get. So, and to top it all off, he has some criminal activity in his history, but not just any criminal activity. Serious criminal activity. The dude was involved in prostitution, and pimping at best, possibly human trafficking at worst, because these types of stories, when it comes to this stuff, always end up being worse than what we know. Like this, I guarantee there's a lot of stuff we don't know. So, and his own business, his legitimate business, United Nuclear, got raided many times because he was doing shady business practice and selling stuff that it was not supposed to be sold, like certain chemicals or agents or poisons or whatever, and he got raided for it. And I believe just before the documentary on Netflix, he got raided. Now they wanted to claim that he got raided because of the government still watching it, but a lot of other evidence shows that no. I mean, he got raided before for shady business dealings, and it didn't seem like he got raided because of that. And he claimed in the documentary that there was just so many people, you know, agency after agency. But Jeremy Corbell himself posted a photo of the raid, and that wasn't that at all. So again, he has criminal activity that he has pled guilty to. So if morally as a person he is okay with all the stuff that he did between the brothels and the shady business practices, is it that far of a stretch to think that he would lie about this? Because it seems like con man should be one of his titles. So when it comes to his credibility, his word, I think that hurts him a lot, quite a bit. Now, I know a lot of people are like, but the government covered all this stuff up. Okay. Think about it this way. If the government wanted to cover up UFOs, it would be the easiest cover-up job ever, right? There are many different ways you could do it. You could literally just ignore it. Because like I said, who's going to believe Bob Lazar? And I think if the government really wanted to cover him up, again, I have the Espionage Act over here. So if you look at other instances of people leaking classified information, for example, Edward Snowden and other stuff, then you would know that Bob Lazar would be fucking thrown in jail. You know, charged with breaking the Espionage Act at best, 10 years in prison, and charged with treason at worst, which people have been charged for. If they really wanted to keep this guy's mouth shut, the moment they caught him, they would have thrown him in prison for 10 years and threw away the key. Because that's kind of what happens to a lot of people who leak classified documents, right? And if they wanted to keep the story a secret, they don't have to go through all the trouble of covering up his information. Because like I said, who's going to believe this story, right? Why does it matter where school he came from, where he even worked? Like the whole Los Alamos drama actually doesn't even matter if you really think about it. Because even if he worked at Los Alamos, even if he was a physicist, even if he did go to MIT and Caltech, and if they didn't even touch any of that stuff, right? Does that really change anything? Because he still had criminal activity proven. He still is telling an outlandish story. And there's still too much against him. So, and another thing is, if let's say his story is correct, right? So for some reason they didn't charge him, he didn't get thrown in prison. And remember, these charges, it's not like it's gonna be some public affair. They're just gonna charge him with treason or breaking the Espionage Act and just throw him in prison. And it's as easy as that. And if it's truly UFOs and aliens, and this is like seriously top of the top secret stuff, I am sure they probably would have thrown him for more than 10 years. They probably would have locked him up for the rest of his fucking life. If it ever came to them keeping the secrets of UFOs, right? So, and if Bob claims to have samples of this stable element 115, so apparently they don't know how to replicate it, or who knows, maybe they do. But if he truly had this substance, you bet your ass the government would be coming for his ass. Get it back. There's no way. Like, imagine if during the Manhattan Project, somebody stole some weapons grade plutonium or uranium. Do you really think the government's like, it's whatever, we got plenty of it? Hell no, because you could be a spy for the enemy, you could be, who knows, dude, they would be coming for that ass. And here's the thing. Say you're the government official in charge of security, right? And it's your job to keep things secret. Here's what I would do. I'd arrest Bob Lazar, I'd throw him in prison, and if the media or whoever, George Knapp or whatever, wants to say, wow, Bob got locked up, the government got him, so that means what he's telling is the truth. They knew it. What he's telling is the truth. You wanna know what I would do? I would just shrug my shoulders and go back to what I was doing. Because even if you want to come to the conclusion that Bob is telling the truth because the government locked him up for spilling secrets, then what? Then what? Where's the proof? You don't have Element 115, you don't have UFOs, you don't have aliens. The government doesn't have to care. The government literally does not have to care. And if anything, of course, the government is always working on multiple stuff. Aliens would be one mix, or I'm sorry, UFOs would be, we're just going to call it UFOs because there's no actual story of aliens here. Well, there is, but not really. But we'll just say UFOs are one black project among many. And you best believe if everyone's focused on this one project that apparently isn't making much progress, that deflects attention from whatever other black project they're working on. Like recently the Raider stealth bomber just got revealed, So honestly, the whole UFO story is actually very convenient for the government in the military who works on classified projects. Because if everybody thinks that what they're working on is aliens and blah blah blah, and it's not true, well, that just distracts from what they're actually working on, which is most likely the next jets fighters or whatever aircraft they're working on Area 51. So that's one thing. It's another reason why Bob Lazar's story doesn't really hold up. And like I said, even if it was true, I think there would be swifter action from government to, not even to shut him up. I don't think they would give a shit about shutting him up. I think it would just to throw him in jail to show that anybody else working for the government, hey, if you want to talk, you gotta go to jail. And I think that's exactly why they would do it. They wouldn't throw him in jail to shut him up. They would throw him in jail to prove a point. Like, hey, anybody else thinking about talking? Your ass is going to jail. So yeah. Another reason why, to me, Bob's story is no longer holding up. And man, I used to be a believer. I'm not a believer, but I used to be very invested, I should say. Went down the rabbit hole. And yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else here when it comes to Bob's story. But I think I pretty much nailed everything when it comes to why the story doesn't make much sense anymore. When held up to screen, again, his character is massively put into question. Does not seem like he was, I don't know how he is today, maybe he's a better person, but it did not seem like he was a good person back in the day with the brothels and illegal activity. And even as recent as the 2000s and 2017, where he tried to sell who knows what to cause them to raid his house. But like I said, if he truly had stable Element 115, dude, he'd be in prison so fast, or interrogated until he tells them where it is. It wouldn't even be funny. So all the lies he said, all the criminal activity, because these lies were blatant lies. Not even, don't worry about the supposed government cover-up stuff. There's many other things he lied about that he was caught. So he's a known liar, known con man, known to make money off of the story. I don't know what else you need. He's just not a trustworthy source. But yeah, I think that's pretty much my conclusion. I was gonna do a section on maybe the science of his UFO and how it worked, but I don't think it even matters, to be honest. Because in order to even worry about the science of the UFO part he claims, you gotta believe him first, But if you guys would like to see that, maybe we could do it for fun, just to see how it would work, see how it goes. But that's pretty much it. That's my deep dive in Bob Lazar. Gotta say, was massively disappointed in learning all this stuff, because it's a cool story. I wanted this stuff to be true as well, as doesn't many people, but when it comes to knowing the truth, gotta be objective. Anyways, I have a second channel that I do a bunch of gaming stuff in. If somebody wants to pop in and say hi while I'm streaming, I stream every once in a while, so feel free to subscribe to that. If you want to hang out, talk conspiracies. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe. You know, I plan on doing a lot more content like this, really deep diving or even reacting to other people's videos. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a nice day. I hope I didn't ruin your opinion on Bob Lazar too much, but leave it in the comment section of what you guys think. Do you think it was all just government cover-up? It's all fake, or there's some merit to what a lot of this stuff has to do with? Anyways, have a nice day. Peace.